Hi, in this video we're going to go through the documents you require for the sole representative visa, and in this diagram I'm going to show you the particularly important points you need to bear in mind and be careful about when you're applying for the sole representative visa, or overseas representative visa as it's also called. Before we get into the detail of this, this live stream is sponsored by Visa Academy, on which I've just completed the work visa tier 2 program, so you can check that out at visa-academy.com. And the great thing about this course, and also the startup visa course that we've completed, is you can go in and get access to the latest sponsored roles. So I'll just show you some information about me and Beck. We produced this together, and you can see here it comprehensively covers every aspect of securing a tier 2 visa. So finding a sponsored role, filling in any gaps in your qualifications and experience, preparing your CV and LinkedIn profile, and then getting a job offer from a sponsor, getting the certificate of sponsorship, preparing your sponsor documents for the visa application, and then submitting it online. And the roles here that you can see and get access to the latest sponsored roles are within almost every area of the economy. So IT roles, healthcare roles, engineering roles, every type of engineering role, the latest professional services roles, including accountants and that sort of thing, management roles, business development roles, and manufacturing, construction and building. So it's quite comprehensive, and yeah, we're very proud of it. So by all means, go over to Visa Academy and check that out. So let's get back to the documents you need for the overseas representative visa. Now, what we're doing with these courses is covering every aspect of how to come into the UK for work, and one of the ways you can come into the UK is through the sole representative visa. There's been many more sole representative visa applications of late, and that's because the tier 2 entrepreneur visa was discontinued and replaced by the startup and innovator visa, and not everyone has a genuine innovative idea that will allow them to qualify under that route. The challenge, I think, with the sole representative visas is you've got to be the minority shareholder, or you can't have more than a majority shares in your company. And they do look back at the previous year. So if you've certainly not something I'd recommend, just dilute your shareholding just for the purposes of qualifying. That would not amount to a genuine business reason for diluting your shares if you're simply doing it for immigration purposes. It's possible that you might want to dilute your shares as part of a restructuring to allow yourself to come to the UK, so it's conceivable there could be good business reasons for doing so. But that is a key consideration, because a lot of people who want to do this are in fact owner managers of their business, and they own more than 50% of the shares. So that's the challenge. Now, there is another route for Ireland, so it's not for the UK, where you can do that as owner manager of your business and set up a branch and coming under the critical skills permit, or on 64,000 or more euros, and that doesn't present a problem. So if you don't qualify for the sole representative visa, get in touch with me and I can help you with the equivalent route for Ireland, if that's of interest. And of course, Ireland is a committed member of the EU. The UK has come out of the EU now. So with that introduction, let's get into the detail of this. Now, the key thing I want you to take into account, which I'll explain with reference to this diagram about the supporting documents you need, is that particularly during the coronavirus period, there could be a long gap between when you apply online for the sole representative visa and when you actually produce your documents for the interview. So in other words, at the moment, the visa application centres are closed temporarily to be reopened once the coronavirus period is over. But that could be a few weeks now. And so you could have documents in your possession when you applied for the visa online, which are basically expired by the time that you actually come to submit them for your biometrics residence appointment, which could, as I say, be in a few weeks' time now. And even in an ordinary situation outside of Corona, if you apply online, then often it can be a number of days or even weeks before you actually have your biometrics appointment. So you've got to be careful to make sure that you submit your documents in a valid form. Now I'll show you what I mean by this, and there's some particular documents, 6 particular documents you should bear in mind for the sole representative visa. So the first one, perhaps most obviously, is your passport, which should be valid for 6 months. That's looking ahead, of course. It should be valid for 6 months at the point that you actually apply. Now the next one that you need, and this is now looking back, is evidence of salary for the last 12 months. So that goes back 12 months. And what I've highlighted here is there's a difference between when you apply online, which is the red arrow, and the time that you actually submit your documents at the visa application centre, which in this case I've just put them as a 2-month gap. And as I say, the point I'm making is that you should check that in this period that none of your supporting documents, such as bank statements, have expired. Now the next one is evidence of maintenance funds for you and your family. That's got to be for the last 6 months. So again, that time period goes back. Then you've got to have the last year's accounts, document number 4, so that goes back 12 months. And then you've got to bear in mind, if you're relying on an English language certificate, then if it's an IELTS certificate, then it's only valid for 2 years. So that takes you back 2 years from the point that you're actually submitting your documents to the visa application centre. And then your tuberculosis test results, if required, which are only valid for 6 months. So those are all documents which can basically, you can have at the point you apply online, but they might have expired by the point you actually come to your appointment date. So simple but important point. Now there's also another set of documents that you need for the sole representative visa, which are not time sensitive in the sense that these 6 documents are. And for these, I'm just going to show you the sources. Now I've got the statutory source, in other words, from the immigration rules or from the statutory instrument, and the relevant guidance extracts. Now, one of the important documents is, in fact, most important document is this one here, the business plan. So just go back to the diagram. So the business plan, but you won't actually find this as a required document in the relevant sources and guidance anywhere, apart from a very obscure reference, and I'll show you where it is. It is here. So one of the guidance documents under authority says that the documents required are the applicant's contract of employment, job description, and the employer's business plans. So bear in mind there's a difference between the business plan that you produce for a startup visa application or an innovative visa application and the business plan that you'd produce for a sole representative visa. Because the sole representative visa business plan is the effectively the parent company's plans for the UK. They're not your plans in your personal capacity. They're the parent company's plans for their business that's going to be in the UK, or the branch of it that's going to be in the UK, which they have appointed you to set up. So that's an important distinction. So a lot of startup business plans are effectively all about me as applicant, quite rightly, because you're the originator of the ideas in a startup visa business plan. But for a sole representative business plan, it's much more about the parent company's plans. Now, on that note, let's have a look at the rest of these supporting documents. So you've got to supply a full description of the company's activities. This includes details of the company's assets and accounts and the company share distribution for the previous year. Let me just move this down, sorry. Apologies, so you should be able to see that now at the top of the screen. So full description of the company's activities. This includes details of the company's assets and accounts and the company share distribution for the previous year. So as I say, it's not generally adequate to simply dilute shares for the purposes of an application, and it would certainly come to the authority's attention because you've got to produce the evidence for the previous year. So if there's been a very recent change just before your application, then that would rightly attract questions about that. Then the next document, a letter which confirms the overseas company will establish a wholly owned subsidiary or register a branch in the UK in the same business activity as the parent company. So the important thing here is the same business activity as the parent company. So it's got to be doing something broadly similar. A job description, salary and contract of employment for the applicant, that much is uncontroversial. But again, you're talking about a contract of employment. So an owner-manager of a company, if you are owner-manager of the company, it's unlikely that you'd have an employment contract with your company. There could be exceptions, but this visa route is for senior employees of companies who are being assigned overseas, rather than for owner managers of businesses. And the employment contract requirement is something that makes that clear. As I say, for the Irish equivalent route, that is not an issue. Then the next one, a letter which confirms the applicant is fully familiar with the company's activities and has full powers to negotiate and take operational decisions without reference to the parent company. So that goes to the autonomy of you as the sole representative in the UK. And then a notarised statement which confirms the applicant will be the sole representative in the UK. The company has no other branch, subsidiary or representative in the UK, and the company's operations will remain centred overseas, and the applicant will not engage in a business of their own, nor will they represent any other company's interests. Now this throws up a few points. So one of the areas where people can go wrong is before the visa they apply to incorporate their branch in the UK. Now, I would not recommend that. It's best to incorporate in the UK after your visa is granted. If you do it beforehand, then it's not necessarily fatal. But if transactions have gone through the UK entity, then you can ironically bar yourself from eligibility under this visa route, because it's designed to attracting companies that do not already have a presence here. So if you move too quickly, then you can unwittingly bar yourself from applying. And then another interesting aspect of this is that the company's operations will remain centered overseas. So this visa route is not designed to attract businesses who are moving over completely, and they're going to have their businesses centered in the UK, at least for the visa term. So it's set up for the branch rather than the main entity. Now, I've included here, and I'll just run through this, or just show you this on the screen, the other eligibility requirements. I don't necessarily propose to go through them, but those are the most important documents you should bear in mind. As I say, my main message is that you've got to be careful, because a lot of these documents are time sensitive, to make sure they're all updated by the time you actually apply. Now, on that note, I'm going to just have a look at the comments, because this is a live stream, and I'll see if there's any questions that I can address now. Okay, great. So thank you very much for your comments, everyone. So I'm just going to go through these. So Prime Falcon Technical Services LLC. So right now the visa offices are closed. Yes, that's right. So globally, the visa application centres are temporarily closed. So you can still apply, but your visa application will not be completely considered, because it's only considered at the point that you submit your biometrics, in other words, your fingerprint and photograph, and you cannot do that while the visa application centres are closed. Sorry, let me just move over to my diagram. I'm going to see if on the next live stream, if there's any way that I can show the comments within the live stream. The next question, Zain Sheikh says that you would like to apply for the naturalization application. Can you help? Yes, happy to help, and I've got videos on this channel about that. Prime Falcon Technical Services, I heard that the visa fee could be reduced by the UK government due to COVID. I haven't heard of that yet, although there are very limited circumstances in which visa application fees can be reduced in very compelling or compassionate circumstances. Yeah, and then I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Thanks for your question. You said do pre-settled status under EU settlement scheme, is it different from the EEA family permit residence card? Yes. So I literally did a live stream yesterday. Perhaps you're referring to that on this point. So whether you're going for the EU settlement scheme or an EEA family permit, the EU or EEA worker should apply for pre-settled or settled status before applying. But in yesterday's live stream, I went over the two routes by which, if you're an EU or EEA national living in the UK and you have a non-European partner, there's basically two pathways to regularising their status. But both of those pathways should, in my view, be premised on an application for pre-settled or settled status. Jasraj Singh says, Tom, can Portuguese permanent residency be converted into Irish permanent residency? If yes, what steps need to be followed? So the answer to that is no, it can't be. It's a separate visa route, so you'd have to go through a full visa pathway if you were applying under the Irish regime. And then Kayin says, when is it possible to go to do Life in the UK? I assume you're referring to Life in the UK test. And the centres are now closed, but you will be able to, but when they open, I can't say what that would be, then they would, then you'll be able to do that. I have a full series on the Life in the UK test, and I'm going to be producing some more content on that soon. Good, so I hope that's helpful. Thank you very much for watching and for your helpful questions and comments in the live stream. Hope you and your family stay safe during this difficult period, and I will say bye for now.